Happy Monday, everybody. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, and you are tuning into the Motor City Madmouth Show, and I am pleased to have special guest Don Beebe, a Super Bowl champion, and a whole lot more. Stay tuned, everybody, because I got news for you. You're going to learn about Don more than what he's done on the field, but what he's done off the field, because I think, without a doubt, both are just as impressive. One of the things I look for with guests is not only if they've been successful on the field, but what they've done after their careers. And Don, to me, is a model of what we target for here. And Don, glad to have you back. It was great seeing you out in Aurora, Illinois.
Yeah, it's good to be on the show again, Scott. Thank you.
Well, thank you. The Super Bowl, everybody. Candy Ambling and I are going to be in New Orleans. We're actually going to be leaving on middle of the night, probably Saturday, because that's just how my body is built. And we're going to be staying in Biloxi, Mississippi, getting in New Orleans on Sunday to get ready for a ride. That's unbelievable. So, with that said, Don, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about your Super Bowls, but in a very, very different way. And I'll explain what I mean. Tom Lasorda once told me at the 1981 baseball winter meetings, because God delays does not mean that God denies. So this best defines your Super Bowl experience. And I think the fact of the matter is you lost 5, but managed to win 1. And I also know that, to me, when you do that, do you feel that this taught you a big lesson about perseverance?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's I coach in the Division III level now, and it's all relative. So no matter what, from Pee Wee football all the way up to the professional levels, only one wins. Okay, so only one can win. So out of 32 teams, one can win. Out of Division III, 243 teams, only one can win. Right. So does that mean that if you don't win, you're a loser? No, not at all. That a loser or a winner is not defined by wins and losses. They're defined by their attitude and their character and how hard they work to earn things in life. And I always tell the football players that I coach is that if you are working as hard as you can and striving to be the best that you can live with whatever the result is. It's what most people fall into the other category that, they want it, but they're not willing to get off the couch. They're not willing to go train really hard or earn things in life. And they expect things to just, come to them. It doesn't work that way. And then later in life, Scott, they regret it. And so I think that's I always say this. I never want to put myself in a position to say 2 words. I wish. Because as soon as you say I wish, it's 2 more words. It's too late. So don't ever say I wish.
Okay, we got some activity in the chat room. Don, I told you we're going to have some people on here. So here we go. Pensman Sports. Hey, guys, Pensman Sports, what's going on? And these guys are going to be pretty busy. I told them about these shows. So the reality of the situation, that chat room is going to be busy. We're going to talk about it a little bit. So with that said, I know you played for the Buffalo Bills, Green Bay Packers, and the Carolina Panthers, their inaugural season. First of all, what was it like playing for the Panthers during their inaugural season?
Well, fortunately, we had it was a 500 year, which I think at that time in 1995 was the first franchise in their inaugural season that was 500 or better. Nobody's ever had in any sport. Nobody ever has had now I could be wrong, but that's what I remember hearing. And we were 8-8 that year. So we had a lot of veteran guys. It was a lot. I love Charlotte. We really love the city of Charlotte. Obviously, being a new team, I don't say I struggled, but it was different because you're coming from Buffalo, going to 4 Super Bowls, and just pandemic. As far as attitudes, as far as everybody's bought in and everybody loves it, man. The whole Western New York is incredible. The organization was amazing. So when you go to that and then it's all new, the expectations are lower. Our expectations were Buffalo. Shoot, it was August. We were packing our bags to go in February, right, to the Super Bowl, because that was our attitude. So it was different, but I enjoyed it. And then I went back to it 1 year later when I went to Green Bay. So it was kind of a nice segue or a little bit of a hiatus of 1 year, to be honest.
I believe in Charlotte. It's a really nice area. It really, really is. So, but with that said, let's watch 2 books. Told you we're going to talk about them. Of course, the last time, remember, I think you only had one. So, nevertheless, what can readers learn from them? And please let everybody know what books they are and where they can get them.
Well, the only place that you can get these books is donbeebe.com. And I actually am packing on my desk right now. I got a big book signing coming up Friday, and I'm packing things into bundles. And I have some right here actually that I just wrote these. And how these came about. This was the original book, 6 Rings from Nowhere.
Okay.
This came out in 2012. It's my life story, which I talk about quite often. I got 10 speaking engagements, Scott, coming up over the next 2.5 months all over the country. And I'm really looking forward to those. I enjoy traveling and speaking, and I mainly kind of speak on those, but I was this marketing firm, Kifect, out of Nashville, Tennessee, which my daughter works there, and they contacted me and they wanted me to do a wide receiver book. Okay. I'll be honest with you, I had no interest, Scott, in doing a wide receiver book at 60 years old and coaching and all that stuff. So I just said, we were kind of halfway through the project, and literally I'm on the phone with my daughter and we're talking about this project, and it was like God just kind of just laid it on my heart to say, you know what, we're going to put this project on hold because I have a whole nother idea. And my idea, Scott, was there's a lot of devotional books out there, right? I mean, everybody has a devotional. And then there's a lot of devotionals for athletes, for sport, centered around sports. And I've had some of those through my life. Right. But I don't ever remember a former professional athlete doing a devotional on experiences that God allowed them to go through and how'd you get through it, spiritually and scripturally, right? Right. So I told my daughter, I said, I got it. We're going to do this. And it came out to be this: never give up. And so it's 12 stories, okay, about things that happened in my athletic career that pretty much every athlete goes through. How to deal with a coach, how to run down Leon Letton. Why did I do that? I mean, how do you get to that point where you run them down and don't even think about it, right? And that's the first one, obviously, and hence why that's the cover. And I wrote 12 different stories. I did all the writing. Obviously, the company edited because I'm not great at editing, but I can write. And it came out, and it's been phenomenal. It's been out about 8 months right now, and it's been incredible. And traveling around speaking about that has been quite a chore, or a cheery thing for me, because there's a lot of athletes out there that have a lot of questions. But then it was approached to me. I mean, literally, this one just came out, and then all of a sudden they wanted me to do one on a devotional on fathers, and how do dads handle kids being in sports? How do dads handle their kids in general? It doesn't have to be centered around athletics. It could be anything in life. Matter of fact, one of the devotional, and it's called In His Image. And it's all about how did I handle certain situations. For example, my oldest daughter was T-boned by a SUV one February night, cold night up here in Chicago area. And it was 11:30 at night, midnight, and we're traveling as fast as we can to the site. We don't know if she's alive. We you always think the worst, right? As human beings. And my wife and I just praying the whole way there, and just like God, just praying that she's going to be okay. So we didn't know what to expect. We get to the site, we see her car first. It was completely demolished. I mean, they had to Jaws the lifer out of the car, okay, and cut the car apart just to get her out. And that's what we heard when I first got the call. And so we were going to the scene not knowing, right? Well, she's okay. She ended up being fine. But one thing it revealed to us is, man, you know what? As much as I want to be a superhuman dad and protect my kids, I can't. I'm a human being. I can't. Only God can do that. And so it was a great lesson for me that these are God's children first. He just gave them to me here on earth. And when I had that perspective, it was just refreshing that if I would have even lost her that night, I would have been able to get through it. It would have been difficult, extremely difficult. Okay. But I would have been able to get through it because of my faith. And so I wrote 12 different stories centered around those types of things. And how do you handle those things? Right. Wow. And it's just been great. I'm so glad I did them both. I never thought I would be a book guy or and now a movie. I don't even know if you know, Scott, because the last time we talked, I have a production company called me. Oh, it's been quite some time now, a year and a half, maybe ago, a year. Salty Earth Pictures out of Wisconsin is actually doing a movie on this book, and it's called Run for Glory, and it comes out by the end of 2026. And so we're kind of in the middle of that. The script is written. Now we're into casting it right now, and we're trying to find out who's going to play me. Of course, I'm saying, Brad Pitt, but that's probably not going to fly. So it'll be somebody much uglier. But we're in the middle of that too. So it's been a lot of things going on.
Well, you already defined what I said earlier, Don. Seriously, really? I mean, what you've done after your career is unbelievable. I have to ask you this: the words "never give up" are synonymous with Jim Valvano.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you imagine you having a book title with 3 of his famous key words, and then that ever enter your thought that there might be some Jim Valvano comparisons?
Well, I mean, again, it's too, the meaning of the context of the 3 words mean the same. Obviously, he was dying of cancer, and then eventually died of cancer when he came up with that 3-worded phrase. So, mine comes from more of persevering through tough times and letting God just open doors amazingly, and then be able to do the ultimate in sports is win a Super Bowl. So the context of both mean the same. Just giving up is not an option. It's just not, and that's exactly what Valvano meant by his deal. It's just not an option. And he landed up dying of it. And so did Stuart Scott, and Stuart had the same kind of, method towards his, at the end there. Just giving up was not an option. And you know what? To their dying day, both of those guys, they didn't give up. I mean, they fought the battle hard, and it was inspiring to watch, to be honest with you.
And then you come up with a book with that title, and I think it's just absolutely, really, really cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Aurora University, where you're currently at. You've been at Aurora University in 2018, replacing Rick Punks. As I understand, you're 51-10 in your time there. How's everything going for you?
It's been. I've coached at 2 teams. One at Aurora Christian High School for 10 years as a head coach, and then 4 more as an offensive coordinator, and let my brother take the head job. Because I wanted to go see my son play college ball, and then Aurora University, the college level. Both are very similar, Scott, situations where when we went in there, like for example, in 2004 when we went to Aurora Christian High School, believe this or not, they had no football field, they had no weight room, and they had 17 kids in the whole program, freshmen through seniors on the team. And it was a school that had never won a conference title. Shoot, there were 2 teams in their conference they had never beat in the history of their school. It was, I always say, it was the Bad News Bears on steroids. That's how bad it was. Really? And but yet it was amazing. Coaches don't win football games; players do, and that I never understood that as a player, but I certainly understand as a coach. All coaches really can do is change your mind and change your heart. All they can do is help create a culture that everybody's bought in, and everybody just loves to go to practice and loves to work out, and they get along and they love each other, and they create this chemistry, right? And it starts to evolve into this culture. That's what wins. And that's what we did at Aurora Christian. And Aurora Christian went on to go to 3 state championships over the next 10 years. And 7 of those 10 were the quarterfinals, and 5 of the 10 were semifinals. And it turned into a perennial powerhouse there for those 10 years. And it really, Scott, it really started with a thought. They really did, because I told them the first day, I might have been a little bit crazy, but I'm kind of crazy. I told them, I said, guys, I don't care what you've done in the past. I said, today we're going to start thinking, eating, drinking, training, practicing, doing everything we can in this school to a state championship. Because until you start thinking, it's never going to happen. And so they bought into it. I got to tell you, they bought into it. And again, where did I get that? I got that from coaches that I had. Mike Holmgren of the Packers and Marv Levy of the Bills. I mean, you just felt going into the season, we were going to the Super Bowl. I mean, just felt it, right? Dan Campbell is doing a great job in Detroit. I mean, he understands what I'm talking about right now. He has taken the culture of Detroit losing to now into a winner. And when these guys go into the game, man, there's no doubt in their mind that they're going to win it. That is your biggest hurdle and we're talking sports now, but that's your biggest hurdle in life. Whatever you want to do, forget sports, just anything in life. You want to be a great husband. You want to be a great dad. You know what? You got to have the mindset. This is what I want to be. This is what I'm going to do. And then the second part that most people don't do is you got to work really hard to do that. Nothing comes easy, because if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, right? Everybody would have one. Yeah, it's not that way. And so it's just been, it's been great at AU. I love my years at Aurora Christian, but I love my 6 years now at Aurora University. And we have had some great success. I mean, we haven't reached what that ultimate goal is to win a national title, but in time, we'll get there.
Chat room. Ralph Williams. Hello, guys. Penman Sports. It's crazy. No weight room. And of course, Penman Sports, who I work with a couple of times a week on, and change the philosophy of the team. I always knew that you were one of my favorite guests, Don. So, with that said, we're going to turn over the brains of the operation to give us a station break, and we'll continue on with Don Beebe here on the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. We are thankful to have him on. And Candy sometimes comes on screen, sometimes she doesn't, but there's no doubt she's coming on screen with you.
Everybody, thank you for listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. The South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune, where you can also get South Florida Tribune apparel or Motor City Madmouth apparel. There is a plethora of writing on the great content on the website, a couple of pictures here and there. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest or have any questions, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to the program.
There you go, Don. A little bit of information about my book. My book, just to give you an idea, talks about old school media versus new school media. And like your first one, it talks about my stories over the years leading up to where I'm at. And I do have another one I'll probably be working on later in the year to provide updates on what we've seen, because full well in this industry, there's so many changes with the addition of streaming and so much stuff. It's way beyond anybody's FCC days. It really is. When things were different, you got fines for saying certain things. You weren't allowed to cuss on the air. And now, with the emergence of podcasts, Don, it really is a different animal. So, all right, let's talk about something more interesting. I've always wondered about this with you, but you have to deal with the NIL and the transfer portal. If not, are you glad you don't have to deal with that?
We don't have to deal with nil money much at all, which I'll be honest with you, Scott, I don't really have a problem with players making money in the college level. Look at money's going somewhere. I mean, they're making the money. So to have the people that are actually on why people are paying the ticket to go see get some money, I have no problem with it. I think they need to limit it. Okay. I mean, it's gotten out of control. I don't think a college athlete should be making more than a professional athlete. Right. So they should put limits on that. Now the transfer portal is completely different. I'm not a fan at all. I think it's going to ruin sports. A lot of coaches are feeling the same way. Here's okay. Let's just put it this way: why do most coaches get into coaching? I'll tell you why. To mentor their kids, mentor people. That's why you coach. If you're not doing that, get out of coaching, please. Okay. If it's about wins and losses and money and all that stuff, just stop coaching. Okay. Most people that I've coached against and with they're in it because they love to mentor. Right. So what the portal does is it kills that. And I'll tell you why. Because first of all, FBS schools are not even really recruiting high schools anymore, because they know when they bring in a high school kid, okay, he's going to play 1 year, 2 years, and boom, he's gone. He's going to take the biggest ticket, wherever that is, FBS. So how do you mentor a kid in a year or two? To mentor to really deep dive into a person and get to know them and get their trust, well, that takes time. They're not just going to walk on campus and reveal who they are, and that is why I coach. So now we at our level haven't had to deal with it yet, but it's starting to trickle to there a little bit more. We had 4 kids that wanted to go in the transfer portal. The nice thing about Division III, and the stats prove this, that when a Division III kid puts himself into the portal, well, guess what? You're going to another D3 program, or you're not going to ever play again. So why would you go to another D3 program to start the process all over again that you just tried to do for a year or two to get into that position? And now you got to really kind of go to another one, because to go from a Division III to an FBS, forget it. It's not going to happen. They just go to another FBS school and get another FBS athlete, right? Instead of going to a Division III school. Has it happened? Yeah, I think once this year. A kid from Bethel, safety, went to Wisconsin. I mean, that's the only one that I know of. So, I mean, it's so rare. Could they go to an FCS? Again, possibly, but highly unlikely. Those schools are going to go to another Division I program and grab somebody there in the portal. So to leave a Division III school really doesn't make any sense, especially a really good program like Aurora and some of the other ones that are across the country. Why would you leave that program and to go to most likely a lesser program? And of the 4 that left us, they all of them went to another D3 program, and 2 of the 4 really haven't even found a home yet. And the other 2 went to different programs. So I don't think it's going to get really crazy like it is in the FBS, FCS level, down at the level that I am. And thank goodness, boy, God had my back, didn't he? Because I'm telling you, I would not coach in the FBS for that one reason right there. Just wouldn't do it because of mentoring people, and then you're gone in a year or two. That makes no sense.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you think it's going to destroy FBS at some point until they put a limit on it. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, first of all, they've opened the can of worms now.
Right.
Okay. And the reason they did is because they got scared of some lawsuit that one person probably was doing. Okay. Because his image was being used and they thought they should be. So they're going to go sue you. So the NCAA really, kind of put their tail between the legs and ran.
Right.
And said, fine. And then they just opened the floodgates to where you have more freedom now as a college athlete than you do as an NFL athlete. Think about that. It's true. And that just makes no sense. So now can they pull the reins and circle back on this and create some? I hope so, but man, you've gone too far now. I don't know.
I've often wondered, how do they fix it? I'm not sure if you can unless you go ahead and have a limited window one time and that's it. The player has to stay. Because we all know what the rules were before, that if you left, you had to sit out a year and then you got to play. Well, welcome to 2025, people. That isn't going to happen. You think it is fixable?
Yeah. Well, one thing you can't do is just put your head in the sand and basically quit and just say, yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. We're still making a paycheck.
Right.
We're still making a lot of money. I'm sure the FBS Final 12 tournament was highly successful and they made a ton of money. So that's all they care about. They don't care about individual things and stuff like this and mentoring kids. I mean, good night. It's the last thing they probably think about, sadly, but it's true. Because if they did, they just wouldn't allow this. It's kind of like raising kids and just let your kid just kind of come and go as they please out of the house. Well, as my dad says, you live in my house, you play by my rules. So that's kind of become sadly, not many do that anymore, but I hope they change it. for the FBS reasons, but I personally, at our level, I don't think we're going to have to deal with it at a very alarming rate.
But the fact that you have to deal with it just surprises me because what you alluded to is Division Three, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. So, all right, let's work our way over towards postseason. That was some heavy lumber coming from a guy that played the game in the pros and now working in Division Three. And all he's doing is writing books and mentoring, and the worst thing in the world. You know, Don Beebe looked up Aurora College. You want to be taught real well. He's been a good friend of mine for a long time, and he's a champion in more ways than one. All right, talking about ways to win a championship. Do you like the new playoff format consisting of 12 teams? And do you feel they have to add any more teams? Do you think 12 is a good number?
I think 12 is a good number. I mean, I liked it. I like it way better than 4. I think it just gives, you know, obviously more teams that would never have a chance of getting in the Final Four. And it gives those teams a little bit of a better chance of pulling it off and making a run. You know, if they win any more, I think it would last too long then. But I would certainly err on the side of maybe more than less. I would keep it 12 or more. I would not go less.
The only number that would make sense to me, because of what you just said, would be 16. Otherwise, that's it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in the Midwest are glad that the Big Ten, though, has gone out there and won 2 of the last national championships, and the SEC hasn't won anything. So, all right, let's go to Robert Wardell. And I have your 89 rookie card, Don. Look at that. This guy's good.
Robert's aging me. Yeah. The old 89 score card. Boy, that was one of the best. Just so you know, that was one of the best packs. One of the best drafts in NFL history, really, with Aikman and Barry Sanders and Deion Sanders, and a lot of good ones came out that year.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain about Barry Sanders. I think one of the most comical things that came out of Deion Sanders' mouth was, "I don't think the Fords can afford me." Well, I think Deion didn't realize that they're only a billionaire family. Yeah. You don't have to like the way they run their organization because they've been indigent for a while. And we all know Troy Aikman, what his accomplishment as a championship caliber quarterback for sure. So, yeah, it was a good draft without a doubt. So, let's get your highlights with the Bills and the Packers. And would you have come to New Orleans had any of those two teams have made it to New Orleans?
Do you mean the Packer team that I played on?
No, yeah. If the Bills had reached the Super Bowl, would you have come down for the Super Bowl?
You know what? My wife and I actually talked about that. And a bunch of guys were talking about it. If they would have had a get together before the game or something like that, we would have made the trip down. Yeah, I'm not so sure I would have went to the game. I'll be honest with you, Scott, and you know this as well as anybody. The game has been a corporate game for a long time. It's not a fan game. That's not a fan game. That's a corporate game. You gotta have big money to go to that game. You know, the common fan, especially in Green Bay and in Western New York, where these are just blue collar people. You know, they can't afford to buy a scalp ticket between $4 to $10 grand to go for one ticket to go to a game. I mean, that's insane. So would I have gone to the game? Probably not. But I would have certainly gone to if a bunch of guys were going, we would have made a trip down.
Yeah, I didn't apply for the game this year. I've been to 4 games, been there and done that. Yeah. Candy's getting her first opportunity to go, so you talk about a kid of a candy store. Yeah. I can't help but use that analogy. I really can't. Totally incredible experience. Radio Row, Media Row. Go ahead.
Let me just say this, because I was asked this question today.
Okay.
Are you really pulling for the Bills? And I said, well, of course I'm pulling for the Bills. I said for 2 reasons. Okay, 2 reasons why I am an absolute huge Bills fan. And don't get me wrong, I'm a Packers fan too, and I pull for the Pack. But the Bills are special for 2 reasons. Marv Levy, he's 99 years old. I would love to see a Super Bowl championship come to Buffalo for Marv Levy. Okay. And I would love to see it for Western New York fans. Nobody deserves a Super Bowl more than Western New York people. Those people are awesome, and they love their Bills. And the Bills Mafia has gone just complete haywire. They're everywhere. Okay. And it's become, man, it's become a national thing right now. I mean, they're in the category of the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packer fan base. I mean, it's huge, so for those two reasons, I would love to see that. I remember when I won the Super Bowl with the Packers, and people always ask me, what were you feeling, man? What was it like when you won it? Well, initially I just walked up to Favre and he gave me the game ball and he said, "Man, you deserve it, Beebs." And that was, that was a cool moment. But I just remember that night. I walking off the field with my two children at that time, Amanda and Chad. They were 4 and 2 years old. Just walking off the field with them, just taking the whole moment in. And I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't say I was crying, but it was really internally emotional for me, because my thoughts were really going to, why me? I mean, why am I the one out of all those people? Coach Levy, Kelly, Western New York, Bill Polian, the fans, why can't, I wish they could be experiencing it as well as me.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost felt, like selfish in the sense that I felt not worthy to be that person, to be holding it up for the Buffalo Bills as well. That a guy, because, oh man, I tell you, Scott, I cannot tell you how many people sent messages to me. Thank God social media wasn't like it is now. I mean, I couldn't, Instagram and Twitter and all the stuff we got now. Oh my God, it would have been 1,000. But I just got a ton of calls and messages from people. It was just really overwhelming by Bills fans.
We get a show on social media. We don't have the time. But I'm going to tell you this. I met Ralph Wilson in Tampa, and I was hoping one day he'd get an opportunity because he's done some unbelievable things in Buffalo. But here it is, Don. I approached Marv Levy. Once upon a time, he was a head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs when they weren't that good. Also, keep in mind, he was a coach in the Canadian Football League. So I walked him and I asked Coach, let me ask you a question. You ran that wing T offense. Tell me what that was like to put together. So Coach Levy looks at me. Hear this one out, okay, Don? He said, "Do you remember that offense?" I said, "Don, I'm an NFL guy through and through between, and you ran it really well." Now, how many of your players played well in it? But it was an heck of an offense. He was complimenting me, pat me on the back and whatever you can do. Wing the offense of Marv Levy. Really? Seriously? And he was impressed that I knew that. But he's a great guy. Yes. Who wouldn't root for Buffalo knowing you wanted Marv Levy to go out there and experience some sort of joy, knowing full well that he coached Jim Kelly and a lot of other great players. And incidentally, I worked with Jim Kelly back at the University of Miami back in the early 80s when Howard Schellenberger was there. Marv Levy, to me, defined Buffalo Bills football in any way that you possibly could come up with, because you talk about you mentoring people or learning from great people. How many people has Marv Levy mentored?
Yeah. Marv just celebrated his 99th birthday, I think back in September it was. October maybe. And a bunch of guys flew in. He lives on the North Shore of Chicago. So a bunch of guys flew in. And I think there was about 9 or 10 of us that took him to dinner downtown Chicago at Harry Carey's. Jim Kelly, Cornelius Bennett, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith, Andre Reed, Steve Tasker. And we just all went to dinner together with Coach. And it was just so good to see him. And he's doing amazingly well for 99 years old. Incredible. One of the greatest, most humble people you could ever meet. I mean, he's just an amazing person.
My only regret is they didn't have a camera phone, but mark my words, camera phones and videos will be on display in New Orleans. And the best part about Candy Hebling is awfully good when it comes to that stuff. Everything I had to do it on my own, but this time I'll actually go out there and have an opportunity to get some real tape on there. J.D. Wyatt, I want to talk about one of my up-and-coming guys on this network, Don. I'm bringing in some young studs. And it's great, like you say, you talk about you liking to mentor people. So do I. I think it's really good. Some of them work out, some don't. When they fall apart, they do dishonest things. It's one thing. But every so often, you run across that individual that's hungry, then you want to do everything in your power to make them really, really successful. And this guy here that just commented in the chat room is another guy in my system as well. But I'm glad you fall into that GMTA category. Great minds think alike. Because Andy Reid, Mike Holmgren, Brett Favre, Jim Kelly were guys that enter my mind, and I know I can easily tie you to them very easily for all the right reasons. So, Kansas City against Philadelphia. I want you not only to give me a prediction on this game, but the ingredients to winning a Super Bowl.
Okay, it's a couple questions there. Let me just start by saying this. I think we are witnessing the greatest coach to ever coach in the NFL right now. I think he's the greatest play design, play calling guy to ever play this game. And obviously that's Andy Reid. Listen, I sat next to this guy. He was a tight end coach of the Packers when I was there. And I sat next to him in every offensive meeting. And he is such a good person. I mean, he really is a good guy. And the players love him. That in itself is the start of the right ingredients of building and turning around the horrible Kansas City Chiefs. And that's what he did. They were terrible. And he gets in there and look at him. I mean, what is this, 7 in a row now? Championship games he's been in?
Yeah.
And 5, I think it is, the last 7 Super Bowls. I think that's right. Something like that. I mean, that's crazy. And it's more than just X's and O's, because I think he's the best ever. And that's a mouthful. I get it. Because there's going to be a lot of people out there going, oh, come on, man. What about this guy? What about that guy? Okay, great. He's certainly in the argument. Okay. But what puts him over the top is he is just such a lovable personality. He really is. And again, I know him very well on the sense of, Andy, when he was the head coach at Philadelphia Eagles, he calls me and he says, hey, I want you to train my son, Spencer, who was a freshman in high school at that time. And this was during the days I was training athletes in the business that I had in House of Speed. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So Andy came in, they spent 3 days with us at the house. And when you spend 3 days with a person, I mean, you get to know the guy pretty good, even though I've already knew him, but you really you did have deep conversations.
Right.
And just found out how genuine this guy is. Awesome family. And Tammy, his wife, is phenomenal. And good night. They got a ton of kids. And, he's had tragic in his life, but he handles it well, So I'm a big fan. Now, in saying that, I think Philadelphia's going to win. Okay. I really do. Even though Andy is the best coach, and you could argue one of the greats at quarterback, sure. But what wins Super Bowls, really, the biggest hurdle that Philadelphia will have to overcome is, and I'm talking about all of them, not just Jalen or not just, the other players. It's going to take all of them to believe that they can beat them, because Kansas City's on a roll. I mean, once a team gets on a roll, it's hard to have somebody come in and say, we're gonna get you. You got to have a big time attitude. Okay, a mindset to be able to do that first. If they have that, they got a better running game and they got a better defense. And if they play those two things, because those two things from an X's and O's and talent standpoint, that's what wins big playoff games and certainly Super Bowls, is a great run game and great defense. Now, I touched on this a little bit, and this is where Buffalo struggled and where Green Bay was so good on the teams that I was on, was Buffalo didn't handle the emotion of that game very well at all, whereas Green Bay did. Obviously, Kansas City's done it. It's yet to be known if Philly will. This is a different makeup team than when Philly won it, the last time they were in the Super Bowl. So will they and what I mean by that is this. You have the regular season games, a lot of pressure, okay, on athletes to perform. There just is. Then you have the big playoff games, and the farther you go in the playoffs, the bigger they get. Like that. The poor guy Kincaid, the tight end from the Bills last night on that last play when he had a chance to catch it. I mean, sadly, he's going to take a lot of heat for that for the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. Okay, is it justified? No, it's a game. Okay, he's not perfect, but that's the kind of pressure athletes have to perform under. And then you get to the Super Bowl. which is amplified even more. So now the team and the guys and Jalen and Saquon and all these guys, if they're able to handle that, the emotion of the game, meaning when things go bad, and it's going to go bad, there's going to be bad plays, there's going to be bad moments. Can you just get over it? If you can and stay the course, Philly wins. If they don't, then Kansas City's probably going to win, because I know Kansas City's going to handle it just fine. So we'll see.
Nick Sirianni made a bold move and gave Saquon Barkley an opportunity. You want to break the record, or do you care about breaking it? My goal is getting a Super Bowl. So far, that move appears to be paying off. It really does paying off. Saquon Barkley, to me, reminds me of Barry Sanders, because he appears to be a very, very unselfish player.
Yeah.
So if you're going to pull for a guy to win a title, Saquon Barkley, the way he was kicked to the curb by the Giants, I do not root for Saquon Barkley. You really almost have to do that.
I mean, not only that, Scott, in the first playoff game, he could have gone for another, 50, 60 yards in that one play at the end of the game, and he took a dive.
Right.
I mean, he could have added 40 more to his 250 or whatever he already had.
Right.
I mean, he possibly could have broke a record in that game. So it tells you a lot about a guy. Boy, is that rare. Oh, I mean, come on, let's just make a statement on Saquon Barkley, how rare that is, that a guy just takes a dive and pulls himself out of the game, because he's there to win a game, and he knows that the team, Philadelphia Eagles, is going to need Barkley in the games to come. So why run 40, 60 more yards when you can pull a hamstring? Why play more plays when you could get hurt? The game's over. You're up 55 or whatever. Let's get out and move on to the Super Bowl. Well, that tells you a lot about his character, and he gained a lot of fans because of it. That's for sure.
Well, I've worked with Wayne Fonts and Barry Sanders. Not too bad, right?
Yeah.
Wayne asked, Barry, you want to chase that rushing? Nah, Wayne, Barry, don't matter. Let somebody else have it.
Yeah.
And how did that work out? Barry doesn't care. He's in the Hall of Fame. You already alluded to it. That one draft was definitely one of the best drafts out there. So your point's well taken. So which is the better duo, Bill Belichick, Brady, or Reed Mahomes?
Oh, wow. Okay, let's put it this way. Okay, yes and yes, no and no. Meaning, I'm taking hands down the best coach, Andy Reid, no doubt. Okay. Now, again, people are going to argue, oh, come on, Bill Belichick, he's been to 8, whatever he is, 12 Super Bowls, 11, and won whatever. And then Tom Brady's the best player to ever play at any position. The only one you could argue there would be Jerry Rice, because Jerry Rice's records are way ahead of anybody else. Okay. So you could argue Jerry, and I'm fine with that. But what Tom is, and what put Tom over the top, this is what put Tom over the top.
Okay.
Is because you could say Bill Belichick and the defense and the system and all that stuff. Okay, great. Well, then he goes down to a team called Tampa, who wasn't even in the playoffs, the year before. And then he takes him to a Super Bowl championship. I mean, come on, man. I was like, how much more credibility does this guy need? There's no doubt. Tom Brady. I would go Tom the player and Andy the coach. That's what I would say to that.
Okay. Robert Wardell, he's a good coach, but could not get it done in Kansas City until he got Mahomes and the rest. I preferred him with the Eagles myself. Some thoughts?
What's the question? I'm sorry.
Robert Wardell was making an observation. He is a good coach, but he could not get it. He could not get it done in Kansas City until Mahomes and the refs. I preferred him with the Eagles myself. So in other words, he's saying Reid did a better coaching job in Philadelphia than Kansas City until he got Patrick Mahomes. That's an interesting point.
Well, I mean, did he not win? No, of course he did win. He lost the Super Bowl. But he had Terrell Owens on the team.
Right.
So I'm like,
I was at that game actually, in Jacksonville.
Listen, I'm sure there's Terrell Owens fans out there, and I'm sorry. It's just when you're a player and you think you're bigger than the team, you're a cancer. It's just that simple. And all that does is keeps you from winning the championship.
Right.
It really does. Man, on teams that I played with, we never had those. Did we have guys that were ego guys? Yeah, but they kept their mouth shut and they just played and they worked hard and they came to practice every day. They weren't out in the public and making a complete distraction and a fool of himself. Okay. I mean, because when Philly won it, it was actually my roommate with the Green Bay Packers, Doug Peterson, is the coach, and my other roommate in Buffalo, Frank Reich, who was the offensive coordinator, and Sirianni was on that staff as well. I mean, they had some good coaches now, but that's always a debate. Okay, is it the coach or is it the players? Okay, well let's put it this way. First of all, the players win the games. I've already said that. All coaches can do is create a culture of winning, right? But let's take Brett Favre. I've always said this, and I really believe this. If Brett Favre would have never met Mike Holmgren, nobody would ever have known Brett Favre. Mike Holmgren taught Brett Favre how to be a quarterback. He took this raw talent of an individual, a gunslinger from Mississippi, and made him a quarterback. He did. He taught him the game. I mean, Brett Favre didn't even know what cover 2 was, for crying out loud, when he got into the league. I was like, how do you know what now cover 2 is, right? He didn't know. He didn't care. He was just playing in the backyard. And he never changed that mentality, by the way. That's why he was so fun to play with. I mean, he just was a kid playing in the backyard. But he taught him the game, So, yes, coaches help players, but the player still has to go out there and execute. So, to his argument, there's, to me, because so many people said that about Belichick too, right? Tom Brady leaves, it's an average team, So that's why it's the players. You got to get the right guys, and what they got in Kansas City right now it's working now. It's working. I hope they don't go to 4, Scott. So they have to lose next year, okay, for obvious reasons. They can't go to 4.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I have a lot of Kansas City followers, so those that listen to this broadcast, if you can be the first team to win 3 in a row, more power to you. Robert Wardell's come up with good comments. And the last thing I want to do before we finish the show is I want you to promote your 2 books again. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, yep. I appreciate that. Yep. So DonBeebe.com.
Well, here, I have 2 more things in the chat room. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No problem. Okay. Robert Wardell, the line of Kansas City is 2.5, so people will bet KC to win field goal and cover. However, with Vegas in the NFL now, Philly will win all the money on Kansas City. If Vegas wins, they bet Philly. I have a feeling I know where Robert Wardell's money is going. We'll leave it at that. Okay, that's a question. It's an all-time great one. Football was real. Do you like the partnership with the NFL? Gambling? Just curious. Now that one I'd like you to please answer.
Yeah. Well, I'm not big on when gambling gets involved in any sport for obvious reasons. But I will also say Fantasy Football League has brought a lot of interest to the NFL. No question about it. And I'm talking about in the forms of money. There's so many people out spending money, and that's why it's brought a lot of interest. The sad thing with FFL is fan base has gone more towards players than teams. They're, especially kids on the college campuses. They're a fan of a guy, a player, than they are more of the team. Okay, I got a certain problem with that, but because I grew up in a different era. However, the NFL has strict rules on this, and I'm glad they do, and I hope they never change this, because it's going to get really scary if the NFL does what the NCAA does, which I don't think they will, because the NFL is way smarter than the NCAA, and just throw their hands up and Katie bar the door, let everybody do what they want to do. Well, now you're going to have players betting on this and that. That would get really corrupt if that ever happened. Let's just hope that doesn't.
I remember years ago in Detroit too, Pete Rozelle gave Alex Karras and Paul Hornung a year off.
Yeah.
Well, the final time they did, and you talk about 2 guys. I don't know if Karras is in the whole thing, but we all know full well Paul Hornung is. So.
Well, let's just say this about Pete Rozelle. Pete Rozelle, and I got in at the end of his career. He's the greatest. I believe the greatest commissioner in any sport of all time. I mean, he was good. I mean, he was hard on the guys, but yet just a good guy. And he was sharp, and he really kept the NFL clean. So And as far as the other question, that one with the referees and all that stuff, I mean, it's become a real hot topic right now. That's for sure. You know, yeah, I can't imagine that it gets to that deep of a state, but I would hope not. I don't know at all. I do know that there's bad calls, but I think what's different is this, Scott. And believe me, being a high school coach and a college coach, I see this all the time. You go to a high school game now, you go to a college game, or even a professional game. Every time the referee blows a whistle 30 years ago, nobody said a word much at all. Now, every time the whistle's blown in any sport, people lose their minds. I mean, they're coming out of the stands and they want to fight the guy, for crying out loud. I mean, what are we doing? We've lost our minds in sports as fans. We have, for the most part. And I'm not talking about everybody. There's small percentages that ruin it for everybody else. But the argumentative and the discontent with a person's call is outrageous. And even 10 years ago or 20 years ago in the NFL, there's been bad calls. There's always going to be bad calls. These are human beings blowing a whistle. Right? You know, how would you like to be a referee? Think about it. Every time you blow the whistle, half the people love you and the other half hate you guts.
That's true.
You know, and it's sad, really. Because when I played, I got to know some of the referees, you know, and they're really good guys. Now, I don't know anybody that's reffing today. That's 30 years ago. But, I mean, they're good guys. You know, just earning a living and love the sport it is. There's just no way that they're looking at this thinking, oh, they're going to. With social media, we've just bloviated so much of this stuff and make it look so much worse than it probably really is. And then as soon as people start arguing, then everybody's jumping into the fire, you know, and it's gotten out of hand, to be honest with you. So let's not look at the zebras. Let's look in the mirror, to be honest with you. Let's look in the mirror and stop complaining, you know. That's just my 2 cents. But
oh, that's okay. You know, I'm going to ditto you on Roselle. Any guy that's bold enough to suspend Pete Rose, Alex Karras and Paul Horning, two of the better players, he doesn't care who you are. If you embarrass the Shield, you embarrass the Shield, and he didn't care. He protected the integrity of the game. So I have no problem with that. Great show tonight, Don, as always. I don't think I would have expected much of anything else between two friends that simply know the game of football as well as we know it, let alone we've been friends for a while. So Candy's going to do a station break. First, we're going to end the show on you promoting a few bucks. Candy, go ahead.
You're listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you see that red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, please like us, share us, and subscribe. We also, the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company, published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It talks about his 40-plus years in the media and how it has changed old school media versus new school media. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. Audio to come out later this year. There is also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of all kinds of other information. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest, email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to you, Scott.
Thank you, Candy. All right, Don, you only have one more assignment to do, and you have uno, dos, tres. That's all I know about Spanish, but at least you got the trace, so I don't have to embarrass myself to those individuals that know the language. So you have 3 books. Please, Don, show them to everybody again, and everybody how they can get a hold of them, please.
Sure. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So the first book that had come out and, this actually 6 Rings from Nowhere is turned into a movie entitled Run for Glory, which is by Salty Earth Pictures, coming out in end of 2026. We're actually in the middle of casting it right now. I've written 2 devotionals, one for athletes of all ages or people in general, really. I mean, just never giving up. It's titled Never Giving Up, Never Give Up. And obviously the play of Running Down Leon Lett is the staple of the book. There's 12 devotionals in this book, 12 different stories that I went through as a player, and how did I get through it by my faith and things of that nature. And so that was fun to write. And then I wrote another one shortly after that one came out called In His Image, a father's devotional. And it's just experiences that I have experienced as a father and how did I handle them, scripturally, faith by faith. And so any dad that, because we all go through it. Hey, listen, nobody's immune to tough times. Everybody's going to experience it, no matter who you are. And if you're a dad, you're definitely going to experience them. Okay. So it's just part of the program. So I just wrote those to kind of help people get through those things. And how did I get through it is the whole premise. And donbeebe.com is the only place that you can get them. You can get 6 rings from anywhere. But the 2 devotionals, the only place you can get those is on donbeebe.com.
I'm just glad I got my 6 rings eating lunch with you out in Illinois. So
yeah,
looking forward to get my hands on those other 2 books and getting me one of mine as well. But John, what can I say? Always great having you on. And tonight you're on the Motor City Mad Mouth Show. We want to thank everybody in the chat room for their great contributions to the broadcast and giving us the opportunity to ask Don some good questions as well. Don, you're a great friend, but more importantly, you're a better person. And I'm just truly glad to be associated with a class act of you. Just so everybody know that coming up to the top of the hour after concluding the show, we'll have 108 Stitches baseball talk as well. But Don was kind enough to do this during Super Bowl week. Well, there's a lot of stuff that we talked about tonight, so don't be frustrated. If you want to listen to it again, feel free to do so. There's a lot of good information. As Tommy Lasorda once told me, knowledge is power, and you'll get a lot of that from this show tonight with Super Bowl champion Don Beebe, the coach of Aurora University out in Aurora, Illinois. Don, I can't thank you enough for once again doing this tonight, and I look forward to having you on at a later date, but more importantly, I'm looking forward to seeing you again when I get to the Midwest. But it's been a great time talking with you about a lot of great stuff. So thank you very much for joining us on the Motor City Mad Mouth Show.
I appreciate you having me on. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
All right, that completes this edition of Motor City Mad Mouth. As I alluded to moments ago, 108 Stitches baseball talk follows. So with that said, on behalf of Don Beebe, my name is Scott Morgan, around the Motor City Mad Mouth. Thank you for joining us on the Motor City Mad Mouth Show, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Take care, everybody. Good night now.